Amen. I'm going to scooch this down here to the left, but it's because I have everything written in my notes, so don't worry. We're still going to talk about the Bible. It's just a small space, and I use a binder because I'm old on the inside, and I don't trust technology. Pastor Blake, would you hold on to this apple for me? Don't eat it. Just hold on to that for me. We'll need it later. If you guys want to go ahead and try to get ahead, we're going to be in 1 Samuel 24, 2 through 7, and 1 Chronicles 21, 1 through 4. If you want to race to those, if you caught either of them, it is 1 Samuel 24, 2 through 7, and 1 Chronicles 21, 1 through 4. Those are going to be the two places we'll hang out the most. If you have to pick one, because you only brought one Bible, I don't know, probably the Samuel one. 1 Samuel 24, 2 through 7. When I was young, I always heard that things would make sense once I got older. This is kind of like a normal thing that people say, especially like when you're real little. Some folks still say it to like teenagers and stuff. I'll have students that ask me questions sometimes, and I'll like give them an answer, and they're like, "That's garbage." I'm like, "Well, when you're an adult and you pay taxes, like it'll suddenly make a lot more sense. Everything gets put in perspective once you start paying taxes." It's not a fun answer, but it's a good answer. I was taught to listen and to submit to those who are wiser and older than I was. This is good advice. But in the end, I had an understanding and an expectation that I think is very common, the idea that wisdom comes with age, and that the young do not necessarily possess it. Then is, as often the case, I kept getting older. My beard thickened, and I was excited about that. And then my joints started aching when I would run, and I got less excited about that. And then shocks of white hair started streaking through my luscious red, and I got much less excited about that. And I did discover that in many instances, I grew in wisdom in areas that I had lacked before. But I also recognized that I did just as many foolish things. I made as many blunders. I acted without wisdom just as often. I lacked understanding probably more as I realized how many things I knew nothing about. So I began watching those around me, and both those who were older and younger, and I realized something that seemed obvious, but wasn't to me at the time, which is that wisdom isn't connected directly to your age. This was a very exciting discovery when I was like in my early to mid-20s, which makes it sound like it was a long time ago, but I'm still pretty young. I'm not out of them yet, so I got that going for me. It's not connected directly to age. In fact, in many instances, the mature and the established, mature, not old, you're just mature, the mature and the established, they made just as many foolish blunders and just as dramatic, and oftentimes more damaging, because with increased platform and authority, larger ripples, greater repercussions as the young people. This became more pronounced as Pastor Blake handed off to me the intimidating blazing torch of Elevate Student Ministries, and I started hanging out with students who were in a place that I remember being more than a decade ago. And I started to see those bits and those moments, those glimmers of wisdom in them that often go so commonly unrecognized in the young. I realized that in many instances, I had scorned the wisdom of my youth. And I don't want to do that with my youth now that I have other ones. I scorned mine. I don't want to do it with their wisdom. Experience is indeed a factor in wisdom, but it's not alone. Age doesn't bring it on its own. Experience, hope, and humility are what I have decided, like 3 days ago, that I am going to call the triumvirate of wisdom. It seems like an adequately weighty title for something of significance. There's not a lot of triumvirates of things throughout history, and we could talk about them, but we'll get distracted, so we're not going to. The one that like leaps to mind is like in the late Roman Republic. Never mind. So today we will be exploring these three pillars, these sources of wisdom, while debunking this myth that I think many of you have built surrounding wisdom. But first, I am a youth pastor, so I don't know what to do if we're not having fun, so we're going to play a game. I have a couple of people that I've already talked to because I didn't want to like put everybody on blast on the spot because I know you guys aren't like used to as much call and response because knees don't work as well and whatnot. So you guys come on up. We're playing a game that I made up a name for this morning. It's called Wise or Whack. It is simple. On the screens here will appear pictures of two characters from media of some variety. Some are films, some are biblical, some are historical. We have a little bit of a spread. All of them are people that I think are very well known and obvious. So we're thinking, history, Tolkien, that kind of thing. It is a simple game. I will hold my hands out. You will turn and look at your screens so that you can see who the faces are. And when you look at them, you will determine which one is wise and which one is not, which one is whack. You will slap my hand to buzz in because we don't have a whole lot of buzzer technology available here. It's not really wired for that. And then you will tell me who the wise one is. You will get a point, which will lead to nothing. You will get nothing. You will get nothing from me. You will get bragging rights. Yes, that's optimistic, yes. So if you're struggling, you don't recognize them, I'll pause for a second. I'll introduce the characters, maybe give a little bit of trivia about them if you're really, but hopefully you won't need any of that, hopefully. So if you guys will turn to your screens, whenever you are ready, I'll just hold my hands out like this and we can throw the first image up. This is an easy one. We're starting off easy. This is David and Goliath. Who's the wise one of the two? Mr. Jared. It's David. David is wise. Yes, David is wise. It was a little worrying how long you hesitated on that, but David is the wise one.
It took me a minute to realize in the cartoon. It's okay.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. David is the wise one. David's so we're warming up, easy peasy. David's the wise one. All right, go ahead and turn your faces towards your screens. Get ready. The buzzers are ready. Give me the next screen. Who do we have here? Obi-Wan is C-3PO are the two in the running. Obi-Wan Kenobi is the wise one, yes. Why would you say he's wiser than C-3PO? 'Cause C-3PO is like intelligent. He's a robot. He's a robot. Yeah, he is a droid.
I'm sorry. It's okay.
In the Star Wars universe, you would be like so canceled right now.
I know.
Calling a droid a robot. I'm pretty sure that's bigotry in the Star Wars world. It's horrible, horrible. But it's 1-1. We're tied up, 1-1. Obi-Wan is the wise one, but for questionable reasoning. Watch the Clone Wars. Droids have feelings too. Anyway, let's go on to the next image. Buzzer is ready. Who do we have here? We have Gandalf the Gray. Well, this is Gandalf the White and Pippin. Yes, who's the wise one? Gandalf is the wise one. Yes, Gandalf is the wise one. Pippin, often referred to by Gandalf as the fool of a took. So really gives it away there, kind of has it right on the tin. All right, so we're 2-1. Still in the running. We got just a couple more. All right, let's go ahead to the next one. Buzzers are ready. Who do we have here? Obvious choices here. We have George Washington and Benedict Arnold. George Washington is the right answer. This is it's like the Sunday school answer is that George Washington is always the right answer.
I thought that was Jackson.
Yes.
So, that was Jackson. But.
Nah, it's just when you started to bald. It's not a very flattering image.
No,
yeah, Jackson had more fiery, angry eyes from all the beating people with his hickory cane that he did. Did you guys ever hear about the time when he got assassinated, but then he walked it off and beat the guy almost to death? Never mind. 2-2. We're tied up 2-2. Very exciting. I think this is the tiebreaker. I think this is the last one, if I remember correctly. Let's go ahead and put it on the screen here. We have Samwise Gamgee and Saruman the Wise. Both have wise in the name. Who is it? Samwise Gamgee, that is correct. Why would you say he's wise compared to Saruman the Wise? That's just how it played out. It's because of the way that it is, you know? I mean, that's about the long and short of it, yeah. Sam didn't turn into a villain who tried to murder everybody. genocide makes you not wise. So we got 3 and 2. We've got a winner over here. Thank you very much, Jared. It's encouraging to see that you can beat our teenagers. Thank you for all the help you give me on Wednesday nights next door. Good try, Madeline. Thanks so much. Don't worry, there wasn't any prize anyway. But there's a common theme through all of these, right? Like there's a lot of old, bearded dudes that we look at and we're like, that's a wise guy. He's smart. And then even the bad guy at the end, who was pretending to be a wise, good guy, he looked like what we expect from a big, bearded, wise dude. Is sneaky because we associate experience with wisdom. Wisdom comes with experience, but it doesn't demand that all the experience is your own. And it doesn't stand alone. In fact, there are 3 books in the Bible that exist specifically so that you can gain wisdom from the experiences of others. You can gain wisdom from pretty much the whole Bible, really. Judges, like laterally, like don't learn to do the stuff that was in Judges, you learn that was the dumb stuff. So Judges learn kind of laterally from. All the other ones, though, you can get wisdom from pretty directly. But these 3 are specifically called the books of wisdom. Job, Ecclesiastes, Proverbs, they are written so that you can gain wisdom from the experiences of others. This is stated in Proverbs 1, verses 1 through 4. It states the author, who for some reason people still argue about, which is fun, and it states the intent of the writing. It says, the Proverbs of Solomon, which you think, okay, well, there's a lot of Solomons. Like, it could be any Solomon. The son of David. Okay, but like, there's a lot of Davids. It could be any Solomon, the son of David. The king of Israel. Okay, well, but people still argue about it. I don't know, man. Theologians get bored, I guess. The purpose is to know wisdom and instruction, to understand words of insight, to receive instruction in wise dealing, in righteousness, justice, and equity, to give prudence to the simple, knowledge and discretion to the young. So it's written not just to record his own wisdom, but also to receive wisdom. He's receiving the instruction of others, there in verse 3, and not just for his own sake, but to give to others so that the young may gain wisdom from his experiences. So we know that experience is important, but personal experience isn't the foundation. After all, Samwise Gamgee, this last one that we had up here, he was a lot younger than Saruman. Like a lot younger. Like, I don't know how many of you guys are really deep into Tolkien, but it's like thousands of years different. Thousands of years. And he was a gardener, so not super well educated. But experience isn't the foundation. Samwise was a whole lot younger than Saruman. And David was a lot younger than Goliath, which you could tell because of how dramatic the size difference was, even on top of him being a giant. But there are great examples within Scripture that show that we cannot rely on experience alone for this exploration of wisdom and age, experience and youth, all that stuff. We are going to be comparing some instances in the passages I told you guys about earlier, 1 Samuel 24, 2 through 7, and 1 Chronicles 21, 1 through 4. So starting in the book of Samuel here, what we're looking at is it's early in David's life. He's killed Goliath, so it's not that early, like we saw something. It's not that early. He's like a grown man now. He's married. It's been a few years. He's been serving Saul. He does such a good job. Everybody's crazy about the guy. Saul's like, I'm going to have to kill this guy because everybody's just too crazy about this guy. He's doing too good of a job. And his daughter's like, Dad, that's my husband. He is now your son-in-law. You can't just murder your son-in-law. People are going to think you're crazy. And Saul said, shh, I am. And so he tries to kill him anyway. He flees. He's in the wilderness. He's hiding. And that's the context within which we jump into this one. Saul goes off to war, barely wins, comes back. Immediately we jump into verse 2 here in 1 Samuel 24. Then Saul took 3,000 chosen men out of all Israel and went to seek David and his men in front of the Wild Goats Rocks, that sounds like a freaking spaghetti western name for something. We're going down to Wild Goats Rocks. Go find me that ne'er-do-well. Yippee-ki-yay. And he came to the sheepfolds by the way, where there was a cave. It just keeps sounding more Western. And Saul went in to relieve himself. Now David and his men, they were sitting in the innermost parts of the cave, all sneaky-like. And the men of David said to him, here is the day which the Lord said to you, behold, I will give your enemy into your hand, and you shall do to him as it shall seem good to you. So they're telling him, like, this is a gift from God. It's finally happened. You can go kill that guy while he's taking care of his business. It's going to be so easy. The Lord has given him to you as a nice little Christmas present. How wonderful. And David arose and stealthily moved up to cut off a corner of Saul's robe. Oh. And afterward, David's heart struck him. So he moved up, but David does not strike Saul. Instead, David is struck, which is, I think, a very fun literary turnaround. But that doesn't have a whole lot to do with what we're talking about. Because he had cut off a corner of Saul's robe, he said to his men, "The Lord forbid that I should do this thing to my Lord, the Lord's anointed, to put out my hand against him, seeing that he is, in fact, the Lord's anointed." So David persuaded his men with these words and did not permit them to attack Saul. And Saul rose up and left the cave and went on his way. Pretty straightforward stuff. Could have killed him, decided not to kill him because he's the Lord's anointed. 1 Chronicles 21, 1 through 4. We're fast forwarding like 2 decades into the future. David has been king for a while now. He's established his kingdom. He's won wars. He's had rebellions. He's beaten the rebellions. He's had a good time. He's had a bad time. He's lived. He's loved. He's learned. He's an old, wise, powerful king. And our story starts off in 21, 1 through 4 in 1 Chronicles. Then Satan stood against Israel and incited David to number Israel. So right off the bat, we know this is bad. This is not good because Satan made him do it. It's super not cool. So David said to Joab and the commanders of the army, "Go number Israel from Beersheba to Dan and bring me a report that I may know their number." He's taking a census. He's just taking a census, which doesn't seem like something that's like Satan gonna make you do. Like that doesn't like murdering the Lord's anointed in a cave. That seems like what Satan's gonna get you to do. But he's just counting folks. But Joab said, "May the Lord add to his people 100 times as many as they are," which seems like a weird thing to ask for as you're about to go count them. "But are they not my Lord the king, all of them, already my Lord's servants? Why then should my Lord require this? Why should it be a cause of guilt for Israel?" But the king's word prevailed against Joab. So Joab departed and went throughout all Israel and came back to Jerusalem. Joab knew something, and David knew something that we don't have the context for, we don't know. But both of them recognized that this command went against the will of God, which is why the author of Chronicles gives us this not so subtle hint at the beginning that Satan drove him to do this. This is somehow in rebellion to God, whether it was a direct command to them or something that they had prayed about and considered and gone back and forth on. Joab knew it, and the king knew it. We see here a young David and an old David. A David who has been anointed king but still serves the current king and is now being hunted by him. And we see a David who has been king for many years, a powerful ruler who has learned much and experienced much. One acts with wisdom and one acts foolishly. Both are seemingly simple situations. Why is there an issue with killing the mad king who hunts for you? Conventional wisdom would say that this is the thing to do. This man who was your king and your father-in-law, he's driven you into the desert where you have gathered men loyal to you, not to fight him, but to continue to guard his borders. Now he's forced your wife, his daughter, to marry another man, which is like super not cool, and is actively hunting you while you still try to serve him. The best thing that you can do for you and your family and the kingdom would seem to be kill this madman. That's even the counsel that he gets from those with him who have more experience, who are older than him. They believe it is a gift from God, finally having the chance to kill this man. But David chooses another path. He chooses wisdom in his youth. In the story that we read in Chronicles, we see a king who rules mightily and kindly over his people, a king who cares. He wants what is best for his kingdom and the people, and he chooses to take a census of his kingdom. I mean, what's the problem with that? It seems like a prudent action to know the population, to know how many soldiers you can muster. This is the specific number that we see Joab bring to him in the end, is that Joab brings him numbers of how many able-bodied warriors they have, so he knows how to plan for war. We know this is a bad decision because of the opening line that says Satan drove him to do this, very dramatically setting up the context for the story. But without that, it seems like a pretty innocuous decision. So what's the problem? I mean, there clearly is one. And it's clearly not a mystery to David and Joab like it is to us. Joab counsels him not to take the census, saying it will cause the entire nation to fall under the guilt of David's sin. But David orders Joab to do it anyway. The issue at stake is relying on experience alone, or as the books of wisdom refer to it, leaning on your own understanding. In Proverbs 3, 5-7, Solomon, the son of that king, the son of David, puts it this way: trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not lean on your own understanding. In all of your ways acknowledge him, and he will make straight your paths. Be not wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and turn away from evil. David believed himself wise in his own eyes. He relied on his own understanding and as such demanded the census be taken even though he and Joab both knew it was against the will of God. This trap always seems so obvious in hindsight, but when you're in the situation, it often presents itself to you and to me as wisdom. After all, how enticing would it have been to strike down Saul, the mad king, while he was vulnerable in the cave? All conventional wisdom would seem to indicate that as the right path. If David's life was a TV show, when he made the decision not to do that, we would be like, oh man, bad stuff's going to happen in the next 3 episodes because of this. He should have killed that guy. This is the issue. We cannot rely on our experience alone. We cannot rely on our understanding alone. Usually, humanity does. During the early stages of the Revolutionary War, we always get there eventually. During the early stages of the Revolutionary War, General George Washington took a young officer under his wing. He began to see him as a part of his family. This young officer showed incredible promise and talent, as well as passion for the cause of independence. He was an excellent leader. He was compassionate towards his men. He captured Fort Ticonderoga. He was pivotal in the defense of New York through defensive and delaying tactics as they set up defenses of the city. He sustained a serious leg injury as he aided in the battles of Saratoga, quite famously, becoming a war hero and almost like a star, a rallying point, a character of great inspiration for the revolution. Before he was involved in the revolution, he was a merchant operating ships in the Atlantic. And so he had a pretty good accumulation of wealth, which he often used to pay his men's salaries, to buy them equipment, to buy them weapons and ammunition, winter clothing, things like this, because quite famously, the Continental Congress had no money to fight the war. That was the whole issue, the whole time, just goose eggs in the bank. Probably literally, because they did more bartering back then than we do now. But this continued. So despite his many appeals, his men continually went unfunded except for by his personal wealth, despite them being part of the Continental Army and not just a local militia. Eventually, this persisted to the point that the young officer's finances were completely ruined. He'd given everything to the cause of independence and received nothing in return. He sold ships and property in the city. He had sacrificed his wealth and comfort for his soldiers while the Continental Congress continued to refuse his demands for repayment. Whether they did so by choice or necessity, it was irrelevant to him. He was desperate. He was financially ruined, felt personally betrayed, and to make matters worse, the war wasn't exactly going in favor of the colonies. So he made a decision that seemed wise to him, seemed like the wisest option to him, all that was available to him. After all, he had a family to care about. He was desperate and afraid. He made deals with British generals to turn over West Point, where he had been put in command after his war wounds removed him from combat service at Saratoga. In exchange for wealth, position, and passage to England, he agreed to betray the cause he had vested everything in. Now, fortunately, this plot was discovered, and the fortifications of West Point did not fall into British hands, although Benedict Arnold, this young officer, still escaped to Britain, where he was able to live out the rest of his days in relative comfort, though disdained and without respect from both the Americans and the British. Benedict Arnold made what seemed to him the wisest decision based on his own understanding. But that experience, that understanding, was interpreted through fear and desperation. This brings us to the second factor of wisdom. Experience isn't enough on its own. We also must have hope. Hope or trust, the words often seem interchangeable, but we're going to stay with hope because it evokes something that feels more like a gasp of air when your head breaks above the water after holding a long breath. And that leans more towards what I'm trying to capture with this point, the anticipation of that breath. In the cave with Saul, David knew that God had chosen him to be the next king. But he did not make decisions out of his fear of Saul. Instead, he had hope in the promises of God. He let his hope in the Lord guide his wisdom. It's all too easy to let our experiences, our understanding, be guided by our fear. This was the mistake of Benedict Arnold, among many other figures. From our game show earlier, this was the failing of J.R.R. Tolkien's character Saruman the Wise in The Lord of the Rings. He lost hope that the enemy could be defeated, and so, as Jared very articulately pointed out, that's just the way things went. He joined the enemy. He turned his back on the people he was supposed to be leaving, on friends he had had for thousands of years. It was heartbreaking. It was the whole thing. But this is such a pervasive truth that we see it all throughout pop culture as well. You don't even have to read the Bible to absorb this idea that hope is essential to wisdom. Because, in the end, truth is true even if you deny the source of that truth. Folks are bound to stumble into the correct conclusion sometimes. Hope is necessary. It's essential to wisdom. The very first time we meet Obi-Wan Kenobi was in Star Wars, A New Hope. Which I know it wasn't titled that when it was released. They got that later, but don't come at me. Star Wars, A New Hope. Hope is essential to wisdom, but hope in what? This is one thing that I learned to emulate from my younger self. It's far easier to have hope when you are young. You have not experienced as much. You've not been hurt as much. You haven't failed as much. As we grow older, we tend to become more cynical. The Lord knows that I have become much more cynical. Oftentimes, we pride ourselves on it. We refer to this part of growing older as becoming world-wise. This is both a sad criticism of what we think of as wisdom, but also an excellent name for it. Two sides to the same coin, I suppose. Usually this cynicism, this becoming world-wise, comes from putting our hope in the wrong thing. We put our hope in the things of this world, and they let us down. So we decide, okay, shut it down. No hope, no trusting in things or relying on things anymore. It's just me against the world. I know how it all works now. I have become world-wise. This is, of course, faulty reasoning. It was trust in ourselves and our own judgment that led to putting our hope in the wrong things, in those things which have failed us in the past. So I don't know why we continue to double down on putting our hope and trust in ourselves. Of course, it's better to have some hope rather than no hope. Even in the world at large, hope misplaced is seen as a tragedy, while even decisions made out of fear that succeed to some degree are looked down on as being flawed. Benedict Arnold may not have ever recovered financially if he had stayed loyal throughout the war, but we'll never know. He made a decision that seemed wise out of fear, and while it didn't work out for the British to get West Point, it did accomplish his goals. He escaped to England. He regained a measure of his wealth. His family escaped and was able to live comfortably. And he was able to retire, live in peace, hated by the Americans and scorned by the British for being a traitor. Even though he was successful, I mean, it's kind of weird. His plan worked, but all the people at the time and us now throughout all of history have continued to look at him as a fool. We can't afford to let fear drive our wisdom, but we also can't rely on the wrong hope. It is equally dangerous. This can be seen in any number of foolish last stand stories or battles in history and media, but let's look specifically at something from Scripture. In Isaiah 31, verse 1, the prophet Isaiah summarizes and restates like a 2-page long prophecy, correction that he's been making against the kingdom of Judah. He says, "Woe to those who go down to Egypt for help and rely on their horses. Who can trust in chariots because they are many, and in horsemen because they are very strong? But do not look to the Holy One of Israel or consult the Lord." Over 200 years since David's kingship, and the prophet Isaiah here speaks to the nation of Judah and to King Hezekiah, who has gone against the instructions of the Lord and put his hope in Egypt to protect them from the Assyrian Empire, rather than trusting in God. And in the end, Egypt abandons them. They suffer several small, minor defeats and just withdraw, leaving Israel or leaving Judah vulnerable to invasion by the Assyrians, which they then do. Now, this story plays out like dozens of times almost in the Old Testament, over and over again with different kings. The difference here is Hezekiah, when he's confronted by Isaiah, he recognizes his mistake and he repents. He puts his trust back in the Lord. The Assyrians advanced through Judah and conquered all the fortified cities, and Hezekiah continued to put his hope in the Lord. They came to Jerusalem, the capital, and besieged it, and he kept his hope in the Lord. They encouraged Hezekiah to abandon faith, saying it was clear that his God, who he had put his hope in, wouldn't deliver the nation. And Hezekiah continued to trust in the Lord and to place his hope in him. And we see what happened in 2 Kings 19:35 through 36, which this section tells the story of Hezekiah, whereas Isaiah records the prophet Isaiah's life. They're contemporaries. It says, "And that night, the angel of the Lord went out and struck down 185,000 in the camp of the Assyrians," which is like just a oodle, just a bunch of dudes. "When the people arose in the morning, behold, all of those were all dead bodies. Then Sennacherib, king of Assyria, departed and went home and lived in Nineveh." He withdrew. I mean, it seems very reasonable. You wake up, 185,000 of your warriors are all dead. You just kind of skedaddle. He places his hope in the Lord, and not only does it bring deliverance, but the enemy abandons even the cities that they had already conquered. We see reaffirmed what Solomon put so plainly in Proverbs 3 and 5. "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding." The Lord is the only source of hope that we can always rely on, but that doesn't mean we can do whatever we want and get away with it because we hope in the Lord. That isn't how letting hope in the Lord guide your wisdom works. This is where humility comes in. This is where perhaps the most difficult part of wisdom for the mature shows up. And what is often the easiest aspect of wisdom for the young comes into play. We must be humble. In Proverbs 9 through 10, it's a special kind of humble. In Proverbs 9, verse 10, the author writes, Solomon writes, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Holy One is understanding." Now, the fear of the Lord in the Old Testament, it's a really fun thing to study in on because fear sounds bad. Fear is bad. Fear, no fun. Fear, no good. But the word fear that's used here is like knee-knocking, trembling, terrified fear. But it's a slightly different conjugate of that word. And it brings this idea of awe and respect. And so oftentimes when we hear it talked about, people just really quickly, they say, well, when it talks about the fear of the Lord, what it means is just you have to respect the Lord, just like him and respect him. And that's what it means. But it means also you should be afraid because he swallowed up an entire city with fire that one time, and then some people thought about rebelling against Moses, and because they thought they hadn't rebelled yet, they thought about rebelling against Moses, and he opened up the ground and swallowed them up. So also be a little bit afraid. So I was talking about this on Sunday with my brother Michael. We were talking about this word, and I mentioned how I get kind of frustrated because people forget about the fear side of it, that he's big, he's scary, he's dangerous, he's powerful, the awe side, the magnificence, the holiness of him, and how we're supposed to like be a little bit put aback in awe, inspired by that. And he said, well, it's like a bonfire. I was like, what the heck does that, what do you mean it's like a bonfire? I just said that he's like God and scary and big and in awe. He's like, yeah, but like a bonfire is very warm and comforting and it's a lot of fun. But also, if you touch it, you're going to have the worst time ever because you're going to catch on fire and fire's bad for you and it's going to burn you. So if you don't respect it and treat it in the way that the fire demands to be treated on its own terms, then you're going to suffer the consequences of it. If you think about rebelling against Moses, the Lord's anointed, then he's going to open the ground up and kill you. He's going to swallow you up like that for thinking about it. It's crazy. Wild story. If you jump into a bonfire, even though the bonfire is cool and warm and awesome, is going to be a really bad time. Fear of the Lord is like, going to a bonfire. So, thank you, Michael. So this is what the fear of the Lord is. It's the beginning of wisdom, that you are inspired by him. You're in awe of him, but you respect him. You're drawn to him. It's the fear that comes through knowing something, because it's not just fear. It's also the knowledge of the Holy One, and it brings understanding. Here we really start to see what the difference is between the wisdom of David's youth and that of his old age. When David was in that cave, the thing that drove his decision-making, the very foundation of his wisdom, was not his experiences at the hands of Saul. It wasn't the experience of the loyal men who were with him, who counseled David to kill. It wasn't even the hope that he had placed in the Lord that he would fulfill his promise to David of making him king of Israel. The bedrock of David's wisdom in his youth was submission to the will of God. He knew God, and he knew Saul had been chosen by God in his own time. So he refused to take a move against Saul. The fear of the Lord was the foundation of David's wisdom. That changed when he had been king for a time. When Joab reminded David that the Lord did not want David to call a census, David ordered him to do it anyway. The fear of the Lord was gone. The reverence and submission to the Lord had been replaced by confidence in his own wisdom. This isn't an isolated instance either. This is a pattern with many of those in Scripture. David's own son, Solomon, whose book we've been reading from for a significant part of this, the Solomon who the Bible tells us was like the wisest man to ever live, the one who wrote 3 of the 4 books of wisdom, that Solomon followed this same pattern. In 1 Kings 11, 4 through 8, we get a snippet towards the end of his life. It says, when Solomon was old, his wives turned away his heart after other gods, which was like the first problem was that he wasn't supposed to marry a bunch of foreign women who worship foreign gods. And he was like, no, I'm going to do that anyway. But also like they weren't supposed to have like tons and tons of wives. Like it's a whole thing. You guys know how you're not supposed to have tons and tons of wives. So, and he also was like, no, I'm going to do it anyway. So he's already off to a bad track record. They turned his heart away from God, and his heart was not wholly true to the Lord his God, and was the heart of his father David. For Solomon went after Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Sidonians, and after Milcom, the abomination of the Ammonites. So Solomon did what was evil in the sight of the Lord and did not wholly follow the Lord as David his father had done. This is like a tragic end to this story. It's horrible. Then Solomon built a high place for Chemosh, the abomination of Moab, and for Molech, the abomination of the Ammonites, on the mountain east of Jerusalem. And so he did for all his foreign wives who made offerings and sacrificed to their gods. Like this is a bigger deal than I think we realize. This is Solomon, the temple builder. This is Solomon who is prophesied, who was promised to his father David that Solomon, your son, will build me the house that you so desperately want to build me. Solomon, the temple builder, has now become Solomon who builds temples. He's built temple to the Lord, as was instructed, and then he was like, well, I'll build one for my wife's God on a hill just outside the city, and I'll build one to my other wife's God on the other hill outside the city, and I should build a temple for that wife's God also on the other hill. And he built temples to all of the foreign gods of all of his wives. Solomon, the temple builder, built temples to all the foreign gods in his arrogance. In his youth, he had been humble before the Lord. The fear of the Lord guided his wisdom, but as he grew, he became arrogant and set his own standard. Because of this, the Lord promised that rebellion would split the nation and that his descendants would only rule over one of the 12 tribes of the nation. But interestingly, that it wouldn't happen in the life of Solomon, it would happen in his son's life, because the Lord had promised David that Solomon would rule in peace for all of his days because of David's faithfulness. So Solomon's rebellion brought a mess for his son. I mean, that's heavy stuff. This is tragic. I mean, this is horrible. Like, this is stuff that, like, when you start reading it and you really get into the story and you get into the characters, start looking into it, you just start crying, because Solomon, this guy who was the hope of the people, the king who's still lauded as the wisest and greatest king they had, turned his back on God in his old age and rebelled against their king. So let's shift gears and get a little bit lighter. I'm going to share some wisdom from my Boy Scout days. For those of you that don't know, I was an Eagle Scout. I did the whole camping thing for a really long time, and I got that nice little piece of cloth that means nothing. It was a super fun time, and I learned a lot of skills that are completely irrelevant unless we run out of electricity, which I don't think that's how electricity works. I went to Bible college, not science college, so I'm not sure, but for the most part, they are irrelevant skills. One of these trips that I learned irrelevant skills on, I was like a senior, I had gotten my Eagle, I didn't have any more merit badges to earn. We went on a summer camp. The whole point of summer camps in the Boy Scouts is you go to this place where they have all these classes, you get a bunch of merit badges in 1 week. It's like going to college, but outdoorsy college for a week. It's wild. You have classes, you have a class schedule, you have to sign up, and it's a pain in the butt, but you get a bunch of merit badges. I didn't need them. So I was like, well, what am I going to do this whole time? And they had this program for Eagle Scouts called the Rangers something, I don't know, Ranger Rick or something like that. And we would go out into the mountains with this weird old guy that we didn't know. In hindsight, it was a horrible idea. He taught us to throw axes and trap animals and skin stuff and how to find our, the normal Boy Scout stuff that you think of that Boy Scouts should know, the extreme hardcore survival stuff. But we don't actually learn that in Boy Scouts for the most part. We learn the basic stuff. This guy was like, listen here, I'm gonna drop you from a helicopter on top of the mountain. You're gonna find your way back down. There, you're gonna find one of your buddies. His legs are broken. You'll fix those. You'll carry him back up. I'll pick you up with the helicopter. It was intense. It was scary. And this one time he's teaching us how to forage for wild edibles. And so he brings out this bag of apples, from the store. And we're like, well, those aren't wild edibles. I know where you got those. I have bought those as well. You're not pulling this on me. I see, I'm ahead of you on this one. And he hands out apples to everybody. He tells us not to eat them. He says, if you have an apple that you find out in the wilderness, would you eat it? And we're all like, well, yeah, I guess so. And then he was like, okay, go ahead and you can start eating the apple. And so we went to bite it, and he yelled at it. He says, don't eat that apple, though. Do not eat that apple. So we all stopped. We're like, yesterday you were throwing axes at us. And what do you know that we don't know? Do not eat that apple. That is not an apple. We're like, oh, okay. So now look at it. What is it? We're like, so somebody raises their hand, not me, because I'm not an idiot. Somebody raises their hand and they go, I think it's an apple. He said, is it? Is it an apple? How do you know that's an apple? And they're like, you got it out of a bag? I don't know, man. And he was like, okay, then eat it. And he's like, eat the apple if you think it's an apple. So the kid it's this 17-year-old kid. He's like, crunch, he takes a bite. It's an apple. He's like, why did you take a bite of that? I told you it wasn't an apple. He said, I knew it was, I thought it was an apple. He said, you should not eat anything that you forage if you are not as confident about it being what you think it is as that kid was about that being an apple. And the whole time I'm sitting there and I'm holding this, I'm like, I don't know about this, man. I paid a lot of money. Summer camp wasn't cheap. I paid a lot of money. I fundraised I sold a lot of popcorn, and Boy Scout popcorn is not good. You got to work hard to sell that stuff. I sold they started selling nuts right when I was getting out, and those sold a whole lot better, but I didn't get to benefit from that. So that's a sore spot for me, but I'm over it through the Lord's grace. How to sell popcorn is so bad, guys. That's a story for another day. it's expensive. I paid a lot of money to be in this forest with this subject matter expert. And I'm like looking at this apple, I'm like, if the guy that I paid a lot of money to handed me an apple and told me don't eat that apple because it's poisonous and it will kill you, I don't care that I'm pretty sure this is an apple. Would you eat the apple? I put the apple down next to you earlier and you were like, I was like, don't eat that, I need it later. He said, Ian, I don't eat random food laying around. I was like, yeah, it's a fair point. It's a fair point. I wouldn't eat that apple. And I was thinking like, you just yelled at me that this is poisonous. And I paid a lot of money to come here with you because you are a subject matter expert that I trust your knowledge on the subject. So if you tell me this is not an apple that I should eat, I'm not going to eat this apple. In my mind, that kid is still the fool because this guy, we're still waiting for the other foot to drop. His name was Brandon, by the way. Really good buddy of mine from Boise. Great guy. But Brandon would do it. I'm still waiting because I'm pretty sure he hid something in it. But he is the subject matter expert. If the guy who I recognize as an expert tells me the apple isn't an apple, I'm not going to eat the apple. That one is an apple. It's not Honeycrisp. I'm pretty sure that's Gala. So it's maybe top 10, not even top 5. We're very particular about our apples in the office. That is what David's trust in God looked like when he was young. He stared at the man hunting him, and he tightened his grip on the sword that he took from Goliath's dead body all those years ago. And he knew that he could end the hunt right then and there. The obvious choice was to kill the mad king and to take his place ruling the nation. The apple was right in front of him. And he knew it was an apple. The men he was with knew it was an apple. But the Lord told him not to eat it. He said, that's not an apple. That's poison. And David listened. That's what I want my trust in God to look like. Experience helps, yes, but it doesn't have to be yours. Learn from others. Don't rely on your own understanding. Hope is good, yes, but put your hope in the right thing. Don't put the burden of your hope on your friends or your spouse or your parents or your job. Put your hope in the Holy One who promises to always come through. This is all good, but humility is essential. Fear of the Lord is where wisdom begins and ends, and we forget our fear of the Lord as we grow older. We forget our awe. We travel in the forest long enough that we stop hearing the voice of our guide as instruction, and that voice just becomes another piece of advice. We decide that we're the experts, and so we eat poison, celebrating that we have found apples. Don't forget the wisdom of your youth. Don't forget the awe, the fear of the Lord. Elevate, don't neglect it while you're young. You're set up now to grow rapidly in wisdom, and it starts with the fear of the Lord. It starts with trust and humility before your God. Let's pray. Lord, you are good, and your mercy endures forever. Thank you that you don't leave us to wander our own paths, that you promise to guide us, that you give us your wisdom, that you speak to us, you commune with us. You're present for us in the word and in prayer and in those around us to seek counsel from the wise, to seek counsel from you directly. Father, thank you for making your wisdom known to us. Make your instructions known to us. Let us hear your voice again as the scary guide that yelled at me not to eat an apple because I paid him a lot of money to teach me how to not die. Remind us of the awe that we felt for you once. Restore our fear in you, our healthy, awe-inspired, a little bit intimidated, warmed and comforted by your presence, fear in you. These things we pray in your holy name. Amen.